Hello, everyone. I think we're going to get started. It's 12:30 here, or 12:31 here in New York. Thanks for joining us today. We are in our third lecture in the Herblebalen lecture series. So thank you for joining us for the Herblebalen lecture series presentation of the Kaba and other typographic ornaments with Marina Chaccur. My name is Alexander. I'm one of the instructors in the Typographic program, which is presenting this talk today. For those who may not be familiar, Typographic is the postgraduate certificate program in typeface design that has a dedicated annual lecture series, the Herblebalen lecture series. The lectures run within the structure of the extended program, and this is a course within the extended program that I teach, and these lectures fill out the curriculum of that course, allows the students and the public a deeper delve into some of the topics for the students and also for the public. So it's a nice way to kind of open up the doors within the program for more perspectives and more voices and kind of a deeper look at the subjects that are covered within the program. So this is today is a perfect example of that. It's something that I've always been very fond of, the idea of ornamentation and typography, but also the Kaba project, which I know by sight, but not so much about the backstory. So I'm really excited that Marina is here to give us a deeper contextual look at that piece. So I'm really excited to learn with everyone. Typographic is a program that offers a lot of courses. Besides the extended program, we also offer a lot of type design related courses. We also have lettering and typography workshops. We also organize Typographics Conference and Festival every year. You can find more information about the program on our website at coopertype.org. I will post that into the chat right now. I'll try to do my kind of multitasking duty, bouncing between my screens. We also have one more talk coming up in this cycle. So we have three distinct cycles of lectures that follow the three-term structure of the Typographic extended program. So this is our first term that happens in the fall. We have one more talk coming up that will be on December 7th at the same time, 12:30 New York time. And the lecture will be presented by Sebastian Morligam. The title of that talk will be On the Origin of Bold and Fat Faces. It will be kind of a look at the evolution, the birth of those two type styles that are so integral to how we understand typography and type styles. So do register for that talk. I will post the link to that. Make sure I don't have a typo. Embarrassing. There we go. So the other thing I wanted to make a note of is that we have an incredibly extensive archive of lectures and talks going back about 5 years. And that's due to the generosity of Heffler & Co. for providing the financial support to allow us to build up this amazing archive of lectures. This lecture is being recorded and will be available shortly online and kind of fill out the add to the collection of material that we have online. You can find past recordings of lectures by going to our lectures page on the Cooper Type webpage. You can also find them on Vimeo, and I'll post a link to that. So once again, I want to thank Heffler & Co. for allowing us to record this talk and also to allow us the opportunity to build up this archive of amazing lectures that we have. So once again, thanks to them for their generosity. And you can find the archive right there, posting in chat. Okay. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's event. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Marina Chaccur. Marina is a designer based in The Hague, which is where she's joining us from right now, through the magic of the internet. She's based in The Hague and works part-time for Type Network. She also teaches type design at KABK and also works at her studio, Marina Chaccur Design, focusing on residential interior design projects. She holds a degree in industrial design from the Armando Alvares Penteado Foundation. Practicing my Portuguese for studying Portuguese. I hope I didn't mangle that. She also has an MA in graphic design from the London College of Communication and an MA in type and media from the KABK, the Royal Academy of Art in The Hague. Marina has been involved in conferences, lectures, workshops, and exhibitions worldwide, and has also served as a board member for ATyPi. With that, I will let Marina take over and introduce today's topic. So thank you so much, Marina, for being here with us.
Thanks, Sasha. Thank you, Kara and Sasha, for the invitation. Thank you guys for helping set up this and everyone. And thanks everyone for joining this evening. I'm a bit nervous because this is my first time giving a talk that is online, that I'm not seeing the audience. And I think it's quite funny that I'll consider that I'm talking to you. Not only at the screen, but please interrupt at any moment, sending questions. We'll look at those questions at the end of the talk. But hi, I'm Marina. As Sasha said, I'm here based in the Hague, and I have a career that it goes in between. It spans from type and lettering, calligraphy, letterpress, typography, to graphic design, to product design, to interior design. So it's quite a bit of a mess, but you can ask me about that later if you want or not. But there's one thing that kind of links to everything, which is ornamentation. And I used my thing here without sharing the screen first. Okay. Yes, so the Kaba ornament, oh my God, that's such a big story for me. And thanks for inviting me to talk about that. And I said in the bio that of the talk that it's the best ornament ever created. And I know it's a big, bold statement, but I'll get to that. Before talking about the Kaba, thank you again for the invitation and for the introduction. And let's dive into ornaments. And why are we talking about ornaments here today? For me, it is also related to borders and patterns. Usually when I'm around traveling or walking around the city or any country or any place, literally, I keep looking at the patterns, the surface design, and the ornaments around. And this has been going on for quite some years. There's a big collection of photos of that like that, but I'll leave that to the side just to say that, it has been forever a passion. But I never really noticed it until was about 2005 actually, that I went to study at LCC, the London College of Communication, and I studied with Paul McNeil, and he was my tutor for the whole year. And when it was about the time to work on the final project, I was unsure on what to focus, and he pointed out that it was so clear that I loved ornaments, and I hadn't noticed that myself, which was kind of silly, but it makes all the sense in the world for me. But that year, it was a privilege to be studying under him at the LCC and also be volunteering at the Type Museum in London. So had access to tons of books and bibliography and type specimens and rare materials and so on. And this is one of them that is kind of, for me, it's the base of everything, which is a Bible. No, sorry, I have some material that is around me here today. I have a pile of things here on my side. So if I look to the side, never mind. So the monotype recorder from the spring of 1960. This is a sort of Bible on how to use type ornaments, because it's a grammar of type ornament, as it says. Oh, you have the cover in the screen share. But the part that is most important for me in this here, it is this classification according to the symmetry. So there are a few types on this side, which is also on the screen, and a few more on the other page. And basically, it's classifying the ornaments according to their geometry and their symmetry. And in relation to that, they'll say how many possibilities of combination there are. So if you get an ornament that is just a circle on a square base, you can turn it around however you want, and you have no other way of using it. It will always be a circle. It doesn't matter where the nick of the ornament will fall. It will always be the same. But there are some other kind of ornaments that you have different symmetries, like vertical and horizontal, or diagonal on one axis, diagonal on both axes. And because of that, you have different possibilities of combination. And this, for me, is the base of so many things. And not only for me, but anyone who wants to work with ornaments, please look into this. So yeah, my final project was about type ornaments and researching type ornaments and the transition from letterpress, from metal type to digital ornaments. In the end, I had to produce some work, some visual work. Ended up creating a family of a typeface with 4 styles that was based on succulents. And for that, there are basically because when I was looking at patterns and ornaments, you have the traditional way of doing things, which is mirror, like it's as the grammar said, like with how you have the symmetries and how you mirror things, and you end up having a regular pattern. So I was doing that in relation to letter forms. So the page that you see at the bottom, that is also this one here, it is the symmetries that are from like between the shapes and the letters. So basically I was exploring the letter forms that are vertically symmetrical or horizontally symmetrical, or when you have 4 of them like these, is B, D, P, and Q. So if you have the lowercase B, D, P, and Q, you have that mirrored in 4 times. So you can create a regular pattern such as this one, right? Which is pretty traditional. But then I was looking at references of patterns on a more contemporary use, and you have things that are like illustrations, composition, like asymmetrical compositions. So then there are other ornaments in other letters that fall like that. But basically, the way that I put this in the B, D, P, and Q, or M and W that are mirrored vertically and that sort of thing, was because what I was looking at, the transition from metal ornaments to digital ornaments, we had an issue in terms of system. How do you use it? Because if you're looking at a typecase of in metal, you just look at the ornament that you want and you set it in place. When we are dealing with it digitally is another thing entirely, but we'll get into that a bit later on. But in this case, that book that is on the top of that pile over there, it's not a book, it's my sketchbook from that time, which I was taking notes from bibliography and things like that. Basically, everything that I was looking, thinking, researching, it was recorded here. And this is something that I still really like the relation between ornament and pattern, and fields and ideas related to both of them, which I'll also get into a bit later on. With a jump in time, I left that project on the side for a while because that was 2005. And then when I went to study at KABK during type media, we had Python classes with a Drawbot with Justin Rossen. And I took the opportunity to apply those exercises to ornaments and create patterns with the typefaces that I had created, that I had designed at LCC. But basically, because when I was at LCC, I was talking to Paul McNeil, and was going to conferences and looking at this, like people developing it was Drawbot and Notebox back then, and the Python language, and using this to program things. And I knew nothing about this, and I did not get into that back then. But in the back of my mind, it was always this idea that you could program the ornaments and the patterns. One reference that that I don't have here, but it's in the library, is the book from Norm, which is like you have a few lines and then they produce the whole books, like showing all the possibilities of the combinations of those lines. Anyway, so then during Type and Media, I was taking every week to think, okay, in this instance, I want to create a pattern like this. In this week's exercise, I want to create something like that. So I had like what you're seeing on the screen. There are different exercises in what I was considering to be interesting to apply to that system that I had developed years before. But then getting back to metal type, I was always influenced by my surroundings and the surfaces around me. So the sidewalks, or of course walls and floors, wallpapers, tiles, all kinds of floors. I translated that to also letterpress with ornaments. Then developed a project with two friends. I can send you a link of that later on how we developed this project. In the beginning, it was madness of setting something and then, oh, no, printing, we don't like this, and start over again. In the second series, then I got into Drawbot and programming in Python, the possibilities, so we could visualize the result before setting in letterpress and printing. And we developed this further, and it was much easier to an extent. There were other explorations in terms of overlapping things with different levels of detailing. This is just a general exercise of playing around with ornaments, and there are many of those things that I've been doing through the years, but nothing taking it much further. And it was always in the back of my head. So then every couple of years, I do something about it. This is a book this is a notebook that is this one. The first note on it is from 2016, and then it jumps to what is it? This is 2016, and then it jumps to 18 or 19, and then it jumps to this year. So then, like, it feels like the study in general is that whenever there's a space and it calls my attention, I get back to it. I think type and ornaments would be always in my mind and in my life, just like making small bits of progress. But well, this is just a backstory until we got to Type and Media, which then we visited a printer in Amsterdam, publisher, which is the Boutenkant. And at the Boutenkant, I was faced with this book, which I'm sure many people have seen, but the other day I asked on Instagram, on my Instagram, if people are familiar with the Kaba and with this book, and the majority said no. And I was like, oh my God, you all know me, like and I've been talking about this forever. How is that you don't know this book and you don't know the Kaba? So it made me even more excited for this talk. So look at the size of this book, but then you know, like very soon why I'm impressed by this. Basically, okay, let's get into the Kaba. The Kaba ornament is an ornament designed by Bram de Does. And even though most people know about his typefaces, Lexicon and Trinité, they don't know much about the Kaba. There are books showing the developments of those typefaces, the sketches, comments. Lots of people know it, license, use it, and so on. But then those have been developed within Enschede, and this is something that he developed for himself, so he could play with it during his retirement. And the ornament is this, you can see better in the screen, the design of the ornament, but it has two sides. Basically, it's it's one, but getting back to the grammar of ornaments from the 60s, from monotype publication in the 60s. Okay, so the circle, you cannot do, like, you can rotate around and you don't have any different result. But then the maximum amount of possibilities of working with an ornament is having one asymmetrical ornament in its square base and its mirror image. So basically, which is the case of the Kaba. You have it, you won't be able to see it very well here in my hands because they are super small. They are 10 de Does size and then Dutch height. And they don't exist in any other size, just this. They were cast by SRD for Bram de Does. And it's this. So with one of them, you can rotate and have 4 positions. So therefore 4 possibilities. And it has its mirror image. So you can see this, that is kind of reflected. So it's the A and B, and which can, so the A has 4 positions and the B also has 4 positions. Therefore, you have 8 possibilities with one single design. So this is the Kaba that is Bram's design. But it has so much more to it, because it could be, okay, it has the maximum amount of possibilities within a square body being an asymmetrical shape. All right, we have other things like that. But in one of in this book, the green book, but I'll show you the other ones, he talks about developing like a huge amount of exploration in terms of sketches to get to something that would be interesting. So these are handwritten notes by Bram, where he's talking about the A and the B, which are these 2 that I just showed. And the way that they are differentiated in metal is the A has 1 nick and the B has 2 nicks, which is basically this this part in the metal that you can see. One, the A has 1, the B has 2. Not sure if it's clear, but it's, I think, well, it doesn't zoom very well, but yeah, that should be it. He also developed that, and the A and the B, he's talking about yin and yang. So in that square body of the metal type, having, like, feeling the space as much as leaving it empty. And that balance, it's pretty interesting, in the same way that he's talking about a 65-degree angle of the curve to give it the idea of the movement and the fluidity and the continuity. And what he achieved there is really, really powerful. He also tried to have the C&D being like a smaller version of it, like occupying less space in the material, so then more like less black area, which was opposed to the ENF, which is almost a square, but not quite, and also like slightly rotated, which would counterbalance the C and D, and then the G just being full black square. But he tried, and he realized that the C, D, E, F, they were not as successful as the A and B. And it's quite true. The A and B are amazing in themselves. So then he developed a lot with just those 2. And then these are some of his sketches showing like how he would sketch with more detailed and a quick version of sketching. And those sketches he would do kind of every day for half an hour for many, many years. And another way that he would sketch to then translate into metal was with numbers. Because if you're sketching with the drawings, you can get lost, and then you're looking, but of course he wouldn't get lost because it was his design and he was used to it. But then he realized that the easiest way for him to translate those drawings to metal, to typesetting, would be with numbers. So having 8 positions, having the A rotated in 4 positions and the B rotated in 4 positions, you have basically from 1 to 8 in numbers, and that's how it's translated to A and B and their positions. And he says that it was set in in November 19, 2002 in precisely 1 hour, which is quite something. These are some of the original materials from Bram in terms of sketches and notes and things that he printed himself with the Kaba. And about the books, there are 2 books that are shown there on the screen, but in total there are 3 books, which are these ones. A second. So, oops. 1, 2, and 3. So then the first one is this thin one here on the back that is printed by Bram himself in letterpress in 2002. And there are only 175 copies, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And this is quite a precious material that I treasure forever. I got it as a gift from Jan Willem Staes in the Type Media class of 2014, because then was the year that I organized ATypi Amsterdam, and I involved them in the conference, and then they gave me this as a gift in the end. So this is an explanation about the Kaba and the possibilities of printing with the Kaba, and some examples of setting. So it has a bit of text in the beginning, well throughout the book, but then it gets more into this kind of explanations further on how to work with the ornament and some examples, which is pretty amazing in itself. And it's quite a lot of work to do this all set by hand and printed and with the level of perfection that Bram does. So then, well, this is book number 1. The book number 2 is the massive one. And why is this impressive? Well, this is not letterpress printed. This is printed in offset by the Bouwtenkant. But these are sketches that he did by hand throughout many, many years. So that this exercise that you've seen here in the grid paper, this is what he did in this book. Well, they basically got all his sketches from many, many years, and he reduced, I think, to 75%, erased the lines, and printed this, which are possibilities of working with a Kaba. And it's about 500 pages. There's a bit of, yeah, of course, bibliography in the end and some explanation in the beginning, but it's just amazing in going from technical information towards just simply beauty. Like there are some of the sketches that he's also showing with the numbers, how he's setting like that, or making comments about how it should be, how it can be mirrored. Like there are many comments throughout the book. And in the end, he has some translation to English to the comments because the comments are all in Dutch. And the text in the beginning is both in Dutch and in English. And I was reading it again a few weekends ago when I started preparing for this talk. And I find it so amazing and impressive. It's this mixture of technical information with historical information, with personal views on things, and highly personal information. It is quite something. I'm not sure. I'm sorry to share with you, but since he shared with us and whoever is reading this book, I don't think we should necessarily know about his bowel movements in the morning and how those sketches would facilitate that. But I find it quite intriguing and a certain kind of humor. So then, yeah, this is book number 3, but number 2. And the book number 3 is this other one. Oh, and something, this is letterpress printed by Bram for the cover of this book. but I will show you some examples of that in a minute. And this third book is also offset printed with examples of possibilities of the Kaba in 2 colors. So it is something else that he hasn't shown before. Actually, he planned, when he did the book number 1, he planned a whole series of books for the Kaba, and little by little showing the possibilities. But then he started losing his eyesight, so that was not possible. Therefore, this book is quite important because it gathers a lot of the work that he had been doing by sketching the possibilities rather than typesetting everything. And this one that is digitally printed, the ornaments that were used for this setting, they are, well, it is a digital ornament, and it was digitized by Paul van der Laan from Bold Monday for Pet Martyrs Notai and the Enschede Font Foundry. And he used from 1 to 8 and from A to H to put the ornaments twice in there, so then they could relate to those 2 colors. This one, there's very little text, is more showcasing, and they did it in a postcard size because initially it was supposed to be a collection of postcards or something like that. And they would say like, oh, who would care for 400 postcards like this? Well, I certainly would. And I'm pretty sure some people would as well. But then visiting the Buitenkant, not only I could get to know this book, but then years later, I came back to talk to Jan de Jong to ask more about the Kaba. And he showed me all these sketches of book covers that Bram did himself for that second book. So there are lots of letterpress printing and calligraphy, all handmade, and then mailed to Jan with a letter saying like, this is, and they were not numbered. And every now and then he would send a few more examples. Hand drawn, hand sketched, hand printed, which is pretty amazing. Like the whole iteration that he went through for getting to that final copy. And I find it, this is one of my favorite actually, because it's not so precise, it's not so perfect. And yeah, people that knew Bram, they would say that he was so precise. It was he was nicknamed like a 1 point in, 1 point out, because of the precision, like one point into the lockup of the setting and 1 point out on this other side. So seeing something like this is pretty remarkable. And then this one is another book that the Buitenkant published, but then this setting with the Kaba is not the Kaba itself, but actually a cliche, a plate that was was cast for that book, the book jacket and the book case, and not use the ornaments. But and then I cannot talk about the Kaba without talking about this gentleman here in this photo with me. That is Thomas Klavermaker. I met Thomas at Letterpress Amsterdam, an event that, it was yearly in Amsterdam at the special collections organized by Mathieu Lomen and Peter Verheul. And Thomas was there one time just printing something, showcasing some examples and of his work. And he had some things with ornaments. And I asked him about the Kaba. And he was like, yeah, of course. The Kaba is, the metal of the Kaba is with Drukwerk in de Marge, which is the Association of Letterpress Printers in the Netherlands. And then he called Sander Pinkse, that is, it was the gatekeeper of the Kaba. And Sander was also coming to the conference, and he brought a little metal case with some of the Kaba inside to show me, and I just started crying almost, because it was so amazing to see it in person for the first time. And then they invited me to say, yeah, you can print with it. You can come to my workshop. And then Sander would bring some of the ornaments. The only condition is that whatever you print, you need to give one copy to Sander as the keeper of the ornament, one copy to Thomas, that is where I would be printing at Letterpress Amsterdam, and one copy to Bram. And like, no pressure whatsoever. Sure, he has done, I mean, possibly most things that you can do with the ornament. What can I do that would add to his work and would be respectful, to his work that he hasn't done himself? Well, I had read the books, I had seen the ornament, I had the proposal, and I was gathering questions to ask him about the development and the Kaba itself. But I was so afraid to, like, is this list of questions good enough? Is this approach respectful enough? That in the end, he passed, and I did not visit him as I intended, and I did not get to meet him, which is a big regret that I have. But I'll not get into that because it's something more emotional. But then right after his passing, Thomas called me and said, Marina, how about teaching a workshop with the Kaba? And I was immediately in. It's like, yeah, of course, let's get to that. He knew about my passions for ornaments and specifically about the Kaba. And then he brought in those huge boxes, those wooden boxes from Enschede that were at Sander's workshop a few blocks away in Amsterdam. And they brought into Letterpress Amsterdam these boxes with kilos and kilos of the Kaba and the white space to go with it, because the Kaba is supposed to be 10-point Dido size in Dutch height. The Dutch height is fine, but it's not precisely 10 points. It's 9.7 something. So working with the Kaba with a spacing material that is normal is a nightmare. So you have to use the white space that comes with the Kaba to work in order to work with it. So then we did. We started with the first class and teaching the workshops. So some people signed up, and then they came to Letterpress Amsterdam, and we showed lots of things. We shared resources and materials. We talked about type ornaments in general. We talked about the Kaba, and then we laid out the table like that, with a few boxes for the A and a few boxes for the B, and with the white spaces in between, so people could play with it. And in the end, we made a very big mess in how we were doing the settings, and the bed of the press had, like, it was a nightmare to set this up in the end. But then we learned the lesson, and it was fun, and we enjoyed it. So in the next year, we decided to do it differently. Therefore, people had to do their own settings in square format. So they had a grid and a size and the number of units. So there are some prints in the special paper that we got from one of the students. And yeah, it was much easier to control in the end, and we could cut into these shapes. But anyway, the workshops were fun, but then I had not done anything with it myself because I was still afraid of what to do with it. But then after having done a workshop and then people using it, I felt, and Bram not being around, I felt somewhat free to work with it. And then I developed this print for a book that was from Letterpress Workers. That's a group of letterpress printers that annually used to gather. This year didn't happen in Milan. And the book collects letterpress prints from many different people around the world around a theme. And then I did something with the Kaba for that. So that was my Kaba windmill. I was not particularly happy or satisfied with it, but at least I had done something. And then this is the book. And then in the next year, there was again letterpress printers and the book, but I wanted to do something that was a bit more free. And then I just started composing something with the Kaba and said, okay, I'm going to do something round. So I'm going to start, because Bram did line by line, but he had sketched things first. So then he would get the composing stick and do line by line for something like this. And also the windmill, I started from the corner and started filling up the space. And basically in this case, I was doing a mirror image on both sides, but doing a corner because then I was going to do something that was round. And he also talks about it in this book, that doing compositions like this, you can have the 4 quarters, but you can also have a part of it as one. It's basically 1/8 of the composition that is rotated around, that is composed multiple times and goes around the axis. And this was one of the first times that I actually felt this flow that people talk about when you are really enjoying something and you're doing something and you go into this flow. I was composing, and then suddenly I did something and I left it on the side. The next time I came to the workshop, I put some more things in, and then I printed and I said, yeah, that's what I wanted. I didn't have to change it. I didn't have to sketch it from, like, it was exactly what I wanted. And then we used this technique that you have 2 mirrors connected to each other, and you can fold it in here in like 90 degrees, and you put the ornament or whatever in the corner, and you see how the reflection would transform it into, well, how 1/4 would make it then a full circle, which is what's on the screen. We'd also tested with a few other forms, because I thought, okay, this is the circle. How about, oh, and this is after it worked, I did the other quarters and we printed. But how it would be with the triangle or a square, and then some shapes were more interesting than the other. And there was also this idea of doing a poster with all of them. But when I saw the results, I didn't think that they were strong enough as the circle was. So we left them aside. And then we used the quarters of the circle to compose them in different ways. And these are the possibilities. The other possibilities are if these sheets are cut in squares and then you turn them around. But basically, these are the possibilities. And we started giving a few nicknames to them. So there's the Magneto helmet, and there's the tulip, and there's the cat, and there's the hourglass, and the mandala, of course. So this is the Kaba mandala that we tested in different papers and inks and printed in a gray ink over metallic paper. And then the cover of the folder is with metal. Yeah, this is, so basically the Kaba mandala comes in this folder that has a bit of an explanation. And then inside there are 8 sheets of the mandala printed in the different settings in the metallic paper. So then someone said when they looked at this with the metallic powder, they said, yeah, Bram would not approve of that. And I keep wondering like what he would approve and what not. But I would try not to get this in the way, otherwise I don't do anything with it. Beyond that, one of the plans is to have a Kaba press. So I do have a small Adana press that was gifted to me by Jacques Lebailly, and then it's with Thomas to do some repairing. And then when it's done, he would send it my way with some kilos of Kaba, and I can print Kaba at home. Well, dream come true, right? Well, at least for me it is. Then from metal to digital, because there's so much that we can learn from these references and more that were from metal type and how to set metal ornaments. And they were never used so much for a number of reasons. In metal as well as digital, the type ornaments are not so well used. There's one passage from Bram's book that I would like to quickly read for you, which I think makes a lot of sense. So he says, here, I am almost certain that in the near future, plenty of computerized ornamentation will be done, perhaps also using Kaba ornaments. Copyright, Bram de Does. And even with this book serving as a manual, I do not know what to think of this. And then he also, but he also says, like, but I'm not only concerned about what is visible. And he compares it to farming and organic vegetables. That if you look at a lettuce that was done, like that was grown with the chemicals or anything else, and organic lettuce, they are different, but they could even look somewhat the same, but the taste is different. So therefore, he says it gives you a better feeling, saying about the metal and how this, dealing with the materiality of the ornaments and with the, the smell of ink and setting something by hand, that, of course, it has a different feeling than if you're programming something digitally. I know that I'm not extending myself, so I'm gonna try to make it shorter and leave things for QA. Sorry for the time, I just realized the time. But basically, there are lots of things that can be done with the ornament. But one of the theories is that I have is like, because from metal, you can pick the ornaments and set it yourself. And he was comparing how people were not using the type ornaments in metal type, as opposed to the options for illustrating and doing illuminations and things by hand, because those parts of the book should be done by hand and not by metal type. So that he was comparing illumination and illustrations and cliches to type ornaments, the same way that's type ornaments to digital ornaments. But when we go to digital ornaments, people have completely different methods of where to put in the character set or how to deal with ornaments. So then when you're changing, when you do a setting with an ornament in a font, you want to change, like if you want to keep the structure that you designed, but then change it to another style, you cannot do it because every person uses them like in different places in the Unicode and in the character set. So you basically have to start from scratch. It's not as if you typeset a text and then you just change the font. It's not the same thing. So then there's one reference, which is this one. I can post the links afterwards of the things that I'm going to show digitally, which are very few. But there's this project by Elmer Stefan and Johannes Lang that they are talk about non-alphabetical parts of type. And they had something to download that you can basically go to Illustrator. Like the idea is that you would go to Illustrator and pick things in the same way that you would pick the ornaments of a typecase. But then I wonder, okay, we are in different times, like we can program things and we can make it easier for the user. And that way of making it easy, like that you pick things, if you want to switch them, you have to pick them again. And then James from Ono Type did this with Rococo. There's the borders come with a drawbot script for generating borders. So you can do a setting and then you can change them, and it's easy to do that. Then this piece you can think about Julien Prier from Boogie Paper on Instagram. You have there's this huge, well, I'm not gonna open it, but it's this huge R. This is separate in his Instagram into multiple posts. Opening here. He also did some programming for how they would work for All Eyes on Type. There was a conference that they organized, that High on Type organized here in Rotterdam the other year, and you can see it in color, and well, it's super fun to see the letter forms built by the ornaments. In the same way that thinking about programming and the rules, there's this project that I can still put 2 points net. They are my brand new colleagues at KABK. And basically for these RISD identity, they developed this rule for how things should be composed. But then basically you have ornaments and they can be replaced because the structure is the same one. One person, it's not in this presentation, but when another person does things that I love is the Maurice Miguel, and he was unable to join us today. He sent me an email right before. But I love his work and everything that he has been doing with ornaments. I just die for them. Please visit his page. But my ultimate reference is Susanna Lico, not only because of all the ornaments that she has designed and the products that she, the ornaments that she has created, but how to use them as well. If you go to her website, you see not only the digital ornaments, but them applied to surfaces. So jacquard prints, like jacquard weaving, that transform into posters or cushions and so on. And this brings me back to an idea that I had for a system for doing optical sizes of ornament collections, for then transforming into prints that would go from a mobile case to a wallpaper. But this is a whole nother story that fits in one of those notebooks. And brings me back to the idea of interior design, because ornamentation and decoration for me is in between things. So the other day I was looking at the Kaba and thinking that a type lockup in letterpress is very similar to a floor plan and laying out the structure of the furniture and the spaces in a house, and leaving and filling out what you want and leaving empty spaces in between. And you can overlap things, but then in different lockups and different prints, in the same way that you cannot put two pieces of furniture in the same space. But anyway, whatever you do, be passionate about what you're doing. This is something that I found, this little print, like in Letterpress Amsterdam at the Thomas workshop, there are all these little corners with lots of things going on, and there's always a bit of a interesting surprise. And I took a picture of this and I found it while I was selecting photos for this presentation. And I figured that one of the reasons that I haven't finished I haven't carried on the ornaments projects, it's basically because there were other things that were a priority, not because I like them like less, but other things came into play. But not in any case, whatever you decide to do and whatever you're doing, be passionate about it, not 6 by 6, but 24/7. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. It's really nice to see like kind of the arc to connecting to things in terms of more of the contextual space, like how people could conceive of ornaments in this like more expanded way. I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about ornaments, is like how simple they are and how like seemingly basic, I guess. Like it's it's a very simple structure, kind of bringing it down to the most essential. But what's amazing is like once you bring it down to these essential elements, like how much you can do. It's like it seems like it's really limiting. You kind of you do something so restricting, seemingly like basically two shapes, and some spacing, and then out of those two shapes, you can get 500 pages, you know, and infinite sort of pressabilities. It's really, really fantastic. So thank you for that, like, expose and kind of an overview of this project and the context around it. I'll pick out a few questions and ask. There's a couple of questions I noticed, like during the presentation. A few folks were asking what Kaba means, if you know, like, what's the reference to
Square.
a square.
Yeah, Arabic square.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if like in terms of like so for Bram, this is like sort of the reference was using sort of Arabic ornamentation as a and so that's like the homage kind of to the roots of that.
Exactly.
There's another question kind of relating a little bit to that, was the and you touched on this, but if you could like maybe highlight that. Like, the question from Laura Bentley was, how was the Kaba, was it ever sold commercially in metal? If so, which foundry?
No.
It was not. Okay.
It's not sold commercially, not in metal and not in digital. The metal only exists because this was cast for by Enschede for Bram himself, because it was his retirement project. And then he left those boxes before he passed away. He already gave, because he was losing his eyesight, so he could not print it anymore himself. So he left those boxes for Drukwerkende Marge, that is the Association of Dutch Printers. So that's why I can print with it, as well as they could lend me some boxes of it to print it myself. But then you should not, okay, it's fine. Like, for instance, this is a bookmark that was done with it by Ru, I forgot now his surname. He was a student of ours in the first workshop. And then, you can sell the bookmark because it was printed letterpress, like he designed it, created, and then was letterpress printed with the ornament. But you cannot create a pattern using the Kaba and sell the pattern. For instance, there are limitations in what you can do with that. The digital file of it only exists for the sake of having generated this color book, and it's not sold. And the rights for the Kaba are with one of his daughters, so she detains the copyright for the Kaba.
Mm-hmm. And do you know if so Enschede was sort of like the involved in like the cutting, so the mats and like was Bram like involved in the cutting of those, or was that just basically his drawings and Enschede?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Took a few.
Yeah, I saw someone talking about, like, I just saw the name Max Kaflisch in the unpassing in the chat, and one of the books that Bram talks about is this one with the ornaments, with the Kaflisch ornaments. And
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's quite a few questions in terms of the references and like books and references that you showed the Instagram. We'll try to type them up in the chat, because it's a lot of additional material. It's always like kind of tricky to.
Yeah, sorry, I rushed over the last part of the, like, all the, because there's so many other references of digital ornamentation that I haven't even begin to touch to talk about. There's one iMagazine from years ago, that this is from 2005, so when I was studying in London, that also talks about ornamentation. And there's the Volvox by Typecuts, Andrea Tines, that is the overlapping in the circular part. Or there was a Restraint by Marian Bunches. There's, well, many references here and there. Digital things. I had a conversation with Jean-François Pochet from the Type at Paris friends a few months ago, and then he was talking about how he was developing ornaments with his typefaces that were also related to the optical size, which I thought it was amazing, because I already get super excited. Like, whenever something comes into Type Network that has things that are extra, they are not letter forms, I always get excited and I start using them. so that the partners already know that I'm bound to use them if they design them, and I'll play with it. And I already get excited when they are changing weight together with the letter forms, and then changing optical sizes even gives me, you know, like another, it's another level of, pleasing, let's say.
Well, the addition, kind of an exploitation of variable font technology just kind of opens up so many possibilities with, you know, you add like the Python scripting, so like the ideas of like the Drawbot allows you to do the kinds of things that variable fonts allow to do. So like on the end user, there's so many tools that are really kind of geared to take advantage, and type designers are kind of working with that technology. It's an amazing time to be both an end user and a type designer, to be kind of creating these things that could continue to push what we have in terms of the tools for typesetting, which
right. But then we still have one problem, that this is what I was starting to address with this project. That is the system in which we place the illustrations, the ornaments into the typesetting. Like, so then in this case, there were 4 different fonts. And for instance, the O was always something that was more, like in the 4 of them, the O was also something that was centered and more round. The lowercase was smaller, the uppercase was bigger. The Z was always to the side, was always like this. So then you could, the B, D, P, and Q were this relation of the reflection in all 4 of them. So then if you do a setting like this, and then you switch to one of the other fonts within this typeface, you get the same structure, but a different style. And this is something that we cannot do across ornaments. And my suspicion is like, this is, of course, it's already tricky to work with ornaments, but this is one added level of complication that is not welcomed by the user. Because then what if you want a different style? What if that one didn't work? You have to start from scratch. Right. And this is one that I haven't found a solution for. And I think it's a collective thinking and exploring.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the more, obviously, like the more these conversations happen on a kind of public space like this, and hopefully we're happy to kind of be that gateway. Like more of these issues or more of these questions come up, and collectively we can start solving some of these challenges, which is, you know, like there's so many folks who are connecting the dots, and I think that's what's really great about a conversation, a global conversation, is like how things can shift and how we can like move things together. So if folks are listening,
yeah, well, yeah, definitely. And if folks are listening, I'll throw one more out there to see if there's anyone picks up. Like besides this project of the optical sizes and things like that, I was considering, this is from October 2016. It is a catalog of, because there's, for metal type, there is a unpublished encyclopedia of type ornaments that is some sketches for it are in the Sunbright library. But then we don't have an archive of type ornaments that exist either in metal or digital. Like there are some things here and there, but not a comprehensive archive. So I started drafting this idea of an online catalog, both for metal and digital, including like an image of the ornament, the typeface name, the foundry, designer, release year, the glyph in case of the digital one, or the point sizes is in case of the metal one, and the list goes on. But this is something that requires funding and requires a lot of volunteer work or extra work or paid work, well, whatever. So I did not go into that myself. I considered a PhD, but no, I left it aside. But I think this would also help, like having this catalog and this overview would also help in the idea of coming up with a methodology on how to place the ornaments within the character set, within the Unicase code, in order to have something that is across the board easier for the user.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely kind of brings up a much wider conversation about Unicode standards, and those are obviously like conversations that keep going on, especially like now that emoji has become such a like central topic, and how that's affecting the Unicode conversations, also like the additional glyphs, and like it's yeah, it's like there's I hate like it's almost like the previous silos of information that used to be like on the technological part, or like the sort of design part. Thankfully, through global conversations, we're we're seeing the cross conversations happening from folks who are deeply involved in Unicode and the type design software and the type designers. It's really interesting. So yeah, I'm so glad that we have a lot of people watching this, and could spark a lot of ideas, and maybe lead to some solutions. There's a few questions in
Someday.
the chat in terms of like the resources. We're going to try to figure out like it's a deep undertaking because there's so much bibliographic material, but we'll figure out. Marina and I will talk about like maybe the best way that we can like put these together for folks, and like either roll them out through our social media. Like Zoom is just not necessarily like the easiest thing for us to just
No.
all these for you all. But we also didn't want to interrupt the flow. Like if we posted links during the talk, then you sort of have to go into another window. We wanted to make sure that like you don't have to bounce around window to window, but we will try to put together at the very least like we'll make a list of the books on Kaba. Like there's a core set of books that Marina showed. They're still, some of them are still available. There's a few very limited edition books, but there's a handful that can be found, and they're not hard. And I would highly recommend getting a copy of a couple of these books, that to see them in person, to see how amazing the range of inventiveness of Bram's work, but also like the possibilities that this type system allows. So we'll try to figure out a way to share some of those resources with everyone. There were I guess I had a question that sort of relates to something that was all sort of paraphrase a little bit of a question, like in terms of the other systems, other ornamental systems that exist. Like one thing that comes to mind, like maybe this is more from my personal explorations of the Superveloz, the system that was done in Barcelona, but it
Yeah.
makes me think of like have any, perhaps your workshop participants, have anyone made type like letters out of the Kaba ornaments? Because like
Not of the Kaba, but like from the things that I put here on the side, there were, for instance, this one that Thomas did with some other students that was about building letter forms out of ornaments. I know that Star Shape Press in the US also does amazing work with ornaments, and I'm dying to go there one day. There's lots of work like this for sure. And then I admire other systems like a Superveloz, but then what I feel is that it's such a prolific system and a complex system. It's almost easy to do something pretty with it because you have so many possibilities, because you have so many elements. So you start putting things together, and it's kind of obvious that you get a big range of results, as opposed to the Kaba that you have one idea, and that one idea is very restrictive, but it gives you so many possibilities with that. And there are other systems like with the Alflige or Granjon, or with the Glint. There's the ornament that from, like, there's a Glint club of people that love the Glint ornament and then do things with that. But I still find, like, with all due respect to people that love Glint, I find it, the Kaba so much more impressive because it's down to its simplicity, creating very complex ideas, like creating complex designs, not ideas.
mm-hmm. And you showed in the in your talk the couple of studios that have been making really interesting things with the ornaments and like creating letter forms and animating. So there's a question in the chat, and I think maybe for in terms of time. Maybe we'll see if there's, maybe we'll do this as like the last question, or maybe second to last question. But the question from Af is, does animating ornaments, as in some of the Instagram examples you shared, diminish the quote unquote flow movement of static ornament patterns, or does it add to it? And what would Bram say about that?
Well, I'm sure Bram would not, considering from the things that I read, I don't think he would agree. But it's how he said, in like this comparison between, like, he's working on a metal type ornament, which is a transgression if you consider, if you relate it to how books were ornamented by doing illuminations. So then I'm sure that at some point in the future we will have something like, oh, but then animating ornaments was so much more interesting and tactile, or whatever, you know, like whatever technology comes next, you have a sort of passion for the previous one. So no, I think it adds, like, there's so many possibilities, like with animation for sure, like you can go so much beyond. And the everything that I was considering in terms of the catalog and the methodology and the optical size system, it's basically for you to test ideas and to test things quicker, right? So then if you think about the whole industry of pattern making for textiles, for wallpaper, for like many possibilities of surface design, for tiles, if we have the whole resource of type ornaments and digital type ornaments, and you input into this, and there are some people working with this and within RoboFont or within Drawbot, but there's not one comprehensive system that takes this into account. So at some point I was considering developing an application, but then talking to Peter van Blocklen or Frederick Pedline is like, okay, no, but never mind, leave this aside, because then you are in the business of developing software and you need to do support for different operation systems, and it goes into another territory that's not what I want. But I would love to collaborate with people to come up with something that would then be easier to get all this material that has been created in the past and in the present and put it to use, because people do they design beautiful ornaments that are rarely used. So
yeah. I'm going to put in the chat window for everyone contact information, the Marina's webpage and Instagram. So please follow her, see the that she does with Kaba, and you could extend the conversation if folks are interested in kind of picking up some of the cues and the baton that Marina is passing on. There's so much to work with. Like, it's such a, as I said, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's such an amazing idea of ornamentation, because it's tied so uniquely to the typography and this idea of like small elements that are put together. It's at the core of how typography works. So it's this like additional space that has so many fantastic possibilities, and it's really amazing to see what people have been doing. And I hope that folks watching get inspired to do more with it, seek out like possibilities to handle metal ornamentation and to typeset things with them. So I think it should sort of start creative juices flowing for lots of folks watching. So thank you, Maria, for sharing.
Hope so.
Yeah. And thank you for everyone joining us today across the globe. We hope you have a good rest of the afternoon, or whatever your time zone allows. The recording of this will be available later, probably in a week or so. We hope to see you all here on December 7th for another lecture and more in the next year. But be safe, everyone. Stay healthy. And thanks again, Marina, for being here with us.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, everyone, for staying throughout this and enduring all this story. If you want to know more or have questions or anything, send a message, keep in touch. Heads up, we will work on a bibliography. I do have a beginner's list of a bibliography for ornaments, but as Sasha said, like, we have a lot to talk about and build on it. Apparently we have similar references, but also extra ones. So
Sure.
we are going to exchange some messages on that and build a bibliography to put out for you. And heads up, my website is kind of off. Like there's only a contact page there because I'm transitioning the website from lettering and type to interior design. So the portfolio is changing quite a bit, quite drastically. And that's what you'll find on my Instagram as well. Not so much type and ornaments, but more ornaments on houses, because I'm also transitioning to the portfolio to interiors. But every now and then, for sure, I'll post some type ornament stuff. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you all and have a